everyone, welcome to another episode of Triangle Offense. I'm Monish, and as always, I'm joined by Nishant. What a fun day in the NBA. The Wizards moving one step closer to elimination. The Knicks pulling one back against the Hawks. And the Utah Jazz pulling out a much needed win against the Memphis Grizzlies and bringing some sanity back into the Western Conference, which saw the lower seeds prevailing until now. We'll talk about all of these games today. We'll start off with the Wizards and the 76ers because we don't have much to talk about them. The Wizards are going home pretty soon. But Ben Simmons, he showed up today finally after getting some criticism in the first game for not scoring enough points. You know what? He had a brilliant first game. He got 15 rebounds and 15 assists, but he was subject to unfair criticism, I would say, because he just scored 6 points. He turned up today. He from the get-go, he got 11 in the first quarter itself, and he finished with 22 points. This is without him playing in the fourth quarter. He rested the entire fourth quarter. You saw Doc Rivers come to his defense after he was subject to criticism by the fans. He's saying, like, you don't know the value in Ben Simmons that Ben Simmons provides to the franchise and how great of a player he is. This series is more or less done. I mean, it's not too much trouble. I think the Philly will finish it in 2 more games. But now the games get tougher from here. Ben Simmons not scoring as many points. Is that actually too much of a concern? You know that he doesn't attempt threes at all, but even his scoring has gone down this season. But is that actually a concern given the way that Joel Embiid is scoring and Tobias Harris has taken a load of the scoring as well?
No, I think there's some kind of the way the league has evolved. There's an inbuilt hatred for players that don't shoot it very well, unless they're exceptional at either scoring or, like, you've got to be Giannis good at scoring to be let off for not being a great shooter, which kind of explains why there was so much hate for Gobert's contract also. Nobody looks at defensive contribution. Nobody looks at the multiple DPOIs he's picked up or the value he adds on their offense with all that. Because Utah have taken pick and rolls and screens to another level. They set double, triple screens, taking out 3 defenders at a time and leaving somebody open to roll to the rim. It's insane. And Gobert's an integral part of all of that. Not to mention his leadership, locker room presence. But all of that gets overlooked because how can you pay so much money to somebody who doesn't score 25 every night? It blows people's minds, and who doesn't shoot it. We're not far from the day where we say he's 7 feet tall, but he doesn't shoot the 3. I mean, what good is he in the NBA, right? We've kind of flipped the table. So Ben Simmons gets a bit of that irrational hate. First of all, forget his offense, forget the rebounds and the playmaking, where he is truly elite. He's, for me, the best defensive guard in the game. Kawhi, Paul George, all of these guys have waned a bit. Yeah, all of them have waned a bit. He is hands down the best defensive. He is locked down on defense. In fact, if they play the Brooklyn Nets, I'm looking at Ben Simmons and only Ben Simmons to shut down whoever it is running their offense, and most probably it'll have to be James Harden because that's the brains of the Brooklyn Nets offense, right? So that gets overlooked. Then there's, okay, he doesn't shoot it very well. Great. Can we move past that? He's one of a few elite players who's not really a shooter. Go back a few eras. This is pretty much what Magic Johnson did. I mean, he could go off. He can score when he needs to, but he was primarily a facilitator and a triple-double machine. But machine meant something else back then. But I mean, this is pre-Russell Westbrook. But I see a lot of that in Ben Simmons' game. And if you remember, 2 seasons ago and even last season, whenever Embiid was out for lengthy stretches of time, Ben Simmons used to be a monster on offense. He used to go off. Right? He used to go. He dropped 42 and 10, I think, on the Lakers, picked up a win against a full-strength Lakers. So it's not like he can't do it. Once he goes on a rack attack, it's tough to stop him in the paint. The way the 76ers offense has been built, not just by Doc Rivers, even by coaches that came before him, it's all Embiid-centric. It revolves around Embiid, and it has Simmons as the main playmaker. And that's what he does. He's playing a role. I would understand if you've never seen him take off, even in Embiid's absence. If you think he really can't score, then the hate is justified. If they're picking up wins and he's giving you 15 rebounds and 15 assists, what exactly is the problem here? So I think it's ridiculously irrational. And he's shutting down the other team's offense. That part gets easily overlooked. He's worth
I
every
agree.
penny, and I've, in fact, did I go so far as to say if I were the 76ers, and this was last season before they made it work with a coaching change, I said if you're keeping the coach and if you have to make a move and you decide Embiid and Simmons just doesn't work, I'd actually trade Embiid. That's what I said last
Yeah.
season. Because he has
Yep.
fitness concerns all the time. He's spectacular when he plays, but he has fitness concerns all the time. And you can get a ton of talent if you trade Embiid, which
True.
you might not get if you trade Simmons. You can build an
True.
entire squad around that Embiid trade using some of the
True.
draft picks that you'll get and the players you get in return. So I'm a big fan. I think the hate is irrational. Makes no sense. Doc Rivers is right. And he's been defending him all season. Right from day
Yep.
one, he's been doing that. Doc Rivers.
Yep. Yep, I totally remember when the James Harden rumors were going on and they
Yeah.
said that Ben Simmons might be traded. He was like, "No, I'm not trading Ben Simmons for James Harden," and
Right.
he stuck by it. And it shows. I mean, Ben Simmons is as valuable as Embiid, I would say. Embiid might get you all the numbers. He might be the big center that the
Yeah.
defenders are scared of. But Ben Simmons is as important to this Philadelphia franchise as Embiid. Embiid didn't have a bad night himself. 22.7 rebounds. The 76ers are 5-0 against the Wizards this season. No chance for the Wizards, right? Or am I wrong in thinking that Russell Westbrook might make one last push at it and just snatch a game?
I don't even think they'll snatch a game. I feel you would really have to. I mean, look at today. They most of the fourth quarter they were just chilling. Ben Simmons didn't play.
Yeah.
A bunch of players, and they picked up a comfortable blowout win. With I'll have to check, but I don't remember any of the big guns crossing 30 minutes of play. Like it was all 26,
Right.
28 minutes, and
Right.
so on. So this is easy for them. This is a cakewalk, and they should thank their lucky stars because they're getting to conserve a lot of energy for the later rounds. That the Wizards came through. I don't think it would have been this easy had the Pacers come through with Levert and everyone. So I think they got lucky. They got lucky that in a one and done, Westbrook came through and the Wizards toppled the Pacers.
Absolutely. The one series that is not a cakewalk is the Knicks versus the Hawks. What an amazing series that is turning out to be. The Knicks were down by 13 at the end of the half or at the start of the third quarter, and then they made a 30-8 run. And that kind of sealed the game. I must say this was pretty bad coaching from Atlanta Hawks because Nate McMillan didn't really make changes. Trae Young was on the bench. And when you saw Knicks making that big push and get the lead,
Yeah, no
I thought Trae
adjustments.
Young should have been much earlier. But he sat on the bench while he saw his team trail, and then by the time he was back, they were already down by 10, and it was a little too much to do at the end of the game, and that kind of sealed it for the Knicks.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Nate McMillan's record. It's not pretty impressive. He goes to the playoffs and then he gets swept like 3 times in the last 4 years with the Indiana Pacers. There was one series with the Cleveland Cavs where he took them to 7, but that was about it. Every other series he's got swept by in the first round itself. Even in the franchises before when he was in Portland, he got swept in the first round. So, much anything of concern here, Atlanta Hawks? I mean, this coach has never gone to the second round in a long time.
Yeah, I mean they can't complain. This coach is also there are tiers of coaches in the leagues. There's the big league coaches that have won chips before, like your Ty Lue and your Doc Rivers and so on and so. Vogel now is on that list. Then there are mid-tier coaches that like your Tom Thibodeau's and the like that can take over a franchise and really turn the tide for them. I'm sorry, I missed Eric Spoelstra also in that top tier. But then there's folks like Tom Thibodeau that come in and kind of make sweeping changes, and you can put in all of the other. You can put your Nick Nurse in there. You can put a bunch of coaches right now. Then there's the third tier, which is still making their name, haven't yet proven themselves as playoff caliber coaches or chip winning coaches, but they have their value. They're good at nurturing young squads, mentoring young talent, getting them into NBA shape, stuff like that. I think he comes into that bucket. I'm not saying he can't make the leap, but thus far he's been in that category. And it's why I don't think Atlanta can really complain because before this season, before Trae Young and the crew willed themselves into the playoffs, was that really even a top 20 dream job in the league? Not really. And this league has only 30 teams, so it's not really. It's not saying much when you even make the top 20. So they get what they deserve. This is a good showcase. Should they want a coaching change, I think this squad is now quite lucrative for someone to come in and say, okay, I can whip them into shape, like how Thibodeau did for New York.
Absolutely.
This would be an easier restoration project than New York. In fact, New York, the Knicks resurrection has been quite remarkable. Atlanta's quite a few steps ahead of where New York was before Thibodeau came in. So I think they're there now. They're at the cusp. They need that one change, maybe a couple of personnel changes in the squad, and they're good to go. Which might just happen because Collins, it's a contract year coming up. He might just leave unless they give him a fat payday. So a little bit of rebuild, maybe a coaching change, but right now, I mean, they get what they deserve. Not a great not a great coach in charge, and it showed because I thought the third quarter, I took a break at halftime. I stepped away from the screen. I was doing something. I came back and I thought, where did the lead go? And then the Knicks kept pulling away.
Yep.
And there was no Trae Young throughout, which is okay. But do you have another plan? Do you have a plan B? Is there something you're doing to stop? There were no adjustments made. And when you bring on Trae Young, it's obviously not to defend, it's to counter some of that scoring.
Right.
So maybe that's where he was coming from, that the Knicks were on a roll, absolute juggernaut, and bringing Trae Young is a further defensive liability. Maybe he just didn't feel the offense was good enough, and right now the job was to control the offense. Whatever it wasn't a very great call because the third quarter kind of settled the game, and then it was too wide a gap for Atlanta to bridge. But learning curve, part of the process. They come back. The next games go to Atlanta, right? 2 games in Atlanta.
Yeah.
As I learned yesterday, the series format is now 2-1. So all right, that should be interesting. Atlanta's crowd is loud too. It's not like
Trae Young did have a message for the MSG crowd. He said like, "See you in the air," and it's going to be a fun. I love this Trae Young guy. I mean, he's standing up against the most vicious crowd in the entire league and getting good points as well. I mean, he's earned the respect. I would say he's got 35 and 30 in 2 games despite the 1 loss. That's pretty good for a start to the playoff.
Yeah, it's a huge show of respect when all of MSG sets out to wear you down for 4 quarters. From the tip off, it shows how important you are. They're not going to do that for anyone. They're not going to show up like that and start jeering if you're Joe Ingles suiting up for the Jazz. Sorry, Joe Ingles. But so that in itself is a show of respect. And he's a feisty little guy, Trae Young. He's been fighting against. It's a bit like Lillard. It's a lot like Dame Lillard. Dame Lillard was lighting up high school leagues and college leagues. I watched a documentary on him, and he was hitting logo threes even back then. And he was a winner. He was a true winner and a scorer. And the story goes, he wasn't a very top tier. I know he still got a pretty high draft pick, but he could have been like a top 3 pick in the draft. Like if you redo the draft today, he's probably number 1 or number 2 or whatever, right? So why he didn't get it, and again, shades of Steph Curry here too, is basically the physique, the build. They thought he's too small to play a scoring guard's role. At his height, they said, okay, this guy is not going to be a very good scoring guard in the NBA. At his height, we're looking more at, and this is a traditional thinking mindset, right? And they said, at his height and size, we would expect him to be a good playmaker, but this guy has no assists. That's mainly because his team required him to be a scorer, put the ball in his hands and get the win. And so he was kind of undervalued as a draft pick. And so he fought against that all his life. That's kind of why he wears a 0, Dame Lillard, because that's the number of people that believed in him, as he says. And Trae Young's a bit similar, undersized even more so than Lillard. Pretty much wherever he goes, league, even in street courts, I'm sure he's the smallest guy on the court. And so maybe it's some kind of overcompensating all the trickery he does, all those nutmegs, kind of really owning that size and saying, okay, you're that tall, I'm going to go under your legs. And he's been a feisty guy fighting against the odds all the time, and this is no different, but it's just another level to do it at the Garden. And I'm sure he's won the respect of many, not just the Garden fans.
Absolutely. And how good it is to see Derrick Rose put up those numbers yet again in a playoff series. It's 26 points, again leading the team. When Julius Randle actually had a pretty ordinary night, he was 2 points at the end of the half. And I thought there's another bad game for Randle. He kind of made up for it in the third quarter, but Derrick Rose was leading that offense, and he was the guy who got them the win.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Randall's shooting has been way off. It was even worse in game 1, and then game 2 kind of, even those points that he did get and whatever he picked up in the third quarter and so on, I thought a lot of that was just New York forcing the issue, just getting him the ball, trying to, just willing him on to get some points and get him going. It would probably have been a wider margin of victory also if they hadn't done that and just went to whoever had the hot hand, like a Bullock who was knocking down the 3. But it's one of those things where, and I know we'll talk about the Utah Jazz later, right? It's one of those things where the law of averages kind of catches up with you. You can only go so many games being this bad when you're someone like Julius Randle, who's had a great season. Couple of off nights. Good that they got the win today. And what I like about him is he doesn't let up anywhere else when he's having an off shooting night. His defense, that hustle doesn't go away. He's pounding the glass both ends of the floor. I like this team. I think their grit and discipline is what stands out. They're not nowhere close to the same level, but they remind me of the 04 Detroit Pistons that took down the Lakers. It's a similar approach to the game with the defensive grit and just intensity on both ends of the floor.
No, I agree. I mean, I like the way that they slow down the game and they kind of make it boring. If there's no crowd, it would have been an absolutely boring game because they play at such a slow pace that it would put you to sleep. But the crowd kind of makes up for it. But they know how to play the way, they know how to slow down their opponents. That kind of works for them, and it's worked for them the entire season. We should talk about the Jazz now because in the first game they shot 12 out of 47 from three. In the first quarter itself, they got 7 threes. We saw this coming. We saw that the law of averages will catch up. Donovan Mitchell was back. He scored 5 threes himself. Joe Ingles got a few shots going. And then it was Jazz running away with the win. But they're facing the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, this is a young team that refuses to go away. The Jazz had a 20-point lead at halftime. And like you, I missed a part of the third quarter. And when I came back and it was down to 3, I'm like, whoa, this is a game to watch. And then the Jazz kind of ran away with it at the end again. But pretty good game, and I don't think they have it easy when they travel to Memphis now.
No, not at all. But I think we're beginning to see with the best record in the league, you're beginning to see why in the playoffs. And you're right. The law of averages, as you said, did catch up, and they had a great 3 shooting night, which became the difference eventually. Yeah, we can talk about play styles and tactics and the matchups, but ultimately, the Jazz were able to match the Grizzlies in points in the paint. There was hardly like 2 or 3 points in it, and then far outshoot them from 3. Last I checked, there's not much in between except the mid range where nobody shoots anyway. So it's the modern day NBA. There's that entire, if you put a heat map of shots taken, you'll find an entire empty curve between the 3-point arc and the paint and the key. So now to the play styles and the tactics and all this. So clearly the 3 shooting showed up, that created the cushion and they won. And if you look at the scores, it would appear that neither team was playing defense. These are all-star game totals, 140 something, 129. But actually, I thought the Jazz did pretty well on defense. I think the Memphis offense...
They were amazing. I mean, I think Rudy Gobert is one of the... Like you said at the start of the episode, Rudy Gobert is probably one of the most underrated stars. He's won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. He's on course to win his 3rd.
3, yeah.
And people don't talk about him. When you selected all-NBA team, he's hardly there. He hardly makes the All-Star game. It's tough to get a shot against Rudy Gobert just because of his height, and then he knows how to defend. It's not like it's not just the height like Porzingis, right? He knows how to defend. He got 4 incredible blocks today, including Ja Morant tried to embarrass him by putting him on a poster. He just denied him.
He does that every time, by the way. Every time they face off, Ja Morant goes... First of all, Ja Morant in 2 years has racked up... let me figure out how to phrase this. These are dunk attempts, and he's made none of them. He's narrowly missed each of them. Either got blocked or hit the rim and it bounced out, or one thing or the other. But each of those attempts, and he's had more of these than most players will have in their entire career, where any one of them goes in, it's the greatest dunk ever scored in the history of basketball. Right? And he does that all the time. Every time they face off, he's trying to embarrass Gobert. One of these days, he'll do it. I mean, he has a 7-game series to try and do it. But yeah, I think Gobert, it's not just... So Gobert, of course, is the bedrock of their defense. But... They played that, so more and more you see NBA teams playing the 3-2 zone, the zone defense, right? And last season Miami did that exceptionally well, except until they ran into LeBron and he just picked it apart. But these guys did that today too, Utah. And I thought they did that exceptionally well because look at the number of points that Ja Morant scored on just pure isolation plays. No support whatsoever, drive into the paint, tough fadeaway, acrobatic finish under the rim. All of those are signs of great defense. First, they shut down any pick and roll opportunities. They shut down any slashers and spacing monsters, forcing Ja Morant and whoever else is holding the ball. Even Brooks had a bunch of isolation plays. Whoever's holding the ball to go into ISO mode. And in ISO mode, you'll take your chances because the probability is always on the defensive side. And even then, credit to Ja Morant for, despite all this, getting the number of points that he did. But
Totally.
all of those were contested shots. On another night, a bunch of them won't go in, and the margin would be much wider. They were contested shots. He had to hit ridiculous acrobatic shots. He had to invent and invent and someday you're going to run out. On off nights, that's not going to work. I mean, he played at the height of his powers, and the Jazz still came away with a big win, right? And that's because it's Ja Morant. Everyone else was shut down by this defense. So I thought the Jazz defense was exceptionally good, and over and above their three shooting, which is a bunch of these players are automatic. When they get going, it's a hot hand, and there's no stopping them. Conley, Bogdanovic, the list goes on. Jordan Clarkson, everyone pulls up. Mitchell was hitting tough contested
Ingles,
shots.
you go forget Ingles, probably the best. What, he's a top 4 3-point shooter this season?
Yeah, the percentage wise, sure. I mean, if I go,
He's got a bunch of them. It's not like a low denominator. He's got a bunch of them.
he's all right. I don't know. Ingles and Bogdanovic, these are the kind of players where you look at them on the court and you wonder if they really belong on that court. They just look like just random uncles that showed up at a YMCA, local YMCA to play. And then, especially Ingles, at least is a three shooter, right? Bogdanovic scores inside and out. He can punish you in the low post, and he's got moves, man. But you don't expect it looking at him. Anyway, so what was really impressive was they brought out their full offensive arsenal, the Jazz. So it wasn't just pick and roll, pull up, jump shot three, or load one side, find an open man, draw the double team, get the ball to him. It was one step beyond these plays, and that's what I love about these guys. They remind me a bit of the Spurs, Tim Duncan Spurs, which is they come up with all these innovations on offense. They set staggered screens, as they call it, right? Where it's like a screen is when a big man comes up or whoever comes up and creates a barrier. The guy holding the ball runs around the barrier, and the defender who's trying to follow him, his path is naturally blocked by the screen, right? What happens then? Either the defender goes around the screen or under, or some other guy has to take over and switch onto the guy holding the ball. A staggered screen is where you set a screen against that too. So the second guy is also screened. And now there's either a third defender that has to come in or you're open. So they do these staggered screens, and they're incredible. They do a staggered screen. So now two defenders are taken out of the game. A third guy has to switch on to, say, Donovan Mitchell or whoever's holding the ball. And then what happens is one of the guys setting the screen, usually Gobert, takes advantage of this, rolls back to the rim. And so now there's like three guys on the perimeter. It's an open pass, easy dunk, boom. It's so clean. And it happens like that. You've really got to pay attention to catch it. It happens in a flash. And they have so many of these moves, which you normally only see the elite teams pull off. Which I guess they're elite now, huh?
Yeah, they are. I mean, topping the Western Conference, no mean achievement. How good was Ja Morant today? 47 points. Now in his first two playoff games of his career, he scored 81 points. That's more than anyone else in the first two games. Luka Doncic had 70 last season, and we raved about it for the entire year. Ja Morant has 81 in 2 games. How incredible is that?
I'll tell you what, it reminds me of Jordan's first, when he went off against the Celtics, the big four Celtics, right? Larry Bird and the whole 9 yards. And what was it that Bird said? Jesus in sneakers. That was God on the basketball court. I'm not saying these Ja Morant, Jordan, or maybe he is, who the hell knows, but this is how great careers start. Nights like these, you get a win, you don't get a win. Jazz did everything good against the Memphis Grizzlies. They played top-notch defense, and yet the Grizzlies had 129 points. That's because Ja Morant had 47 was it that he finished with? 47 points.
47 and 7 assists.
Spectacular assists too. None of them came easy. And this was the height of innovation on offense for Ja Morant to get any of those assists. So if he can do that against a defense this good, there's going to be nights when the defense is not that good. There are going to be teams where the defense is not that good. He set up really nicely to carry the franchise.
Absolutely. Doesn't look like his first season in the playoffs. His 3 biggest games, probably the play-in against the Warriors, he scored 26. The first game against the Jazz, he scored 34, and now 47. He's getting better and better.
He was pretty good last season too. It took Dame Lillard at his best to knock them out in the play-in.
Yep. Absolutely. So that was the Jazz much needed win, because if they went 2-0 down against the Grizzlies and they had to travel to Memphis, well, that would have been a tough ask. But 1-1, I think the Jazz still start off as favorites when they travel to Memphis. Big games coming up tomorrow. Lakers taking on Phoenix, part 3. Backing the Lakers again. At the Staples, you got to expect them to win, because you're playing in front of crowds after a long time. in a playoff game. I think the Lakers should win this one pretty comfortably. But
Yeah, I think they'll
I'm
put
more
on a
interested in Game
show.
4 where Phoenix will be more prepared, I would say.
Yeah, whatever. I think they should put on a show. It's been ages since they had fans in the. I'm hoping not just for a win, but for Showtime Lakers to show up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's going to happen. I think these players are just too good to, and they've been longing for so long to perform in front of the home crowd. Hope it doesn't get to them. The occasion doesn't look like it will, but I think the Lakers should pick up a win easy on this one. Game 4, you're right, is going to be interesting because that's the tipping point. If the Lakers get that, it's an uphill
then
climb.
it's over,
Yeah, it's over. Also, I think it'll be interesting. Hopefully, Chris Paul's fit, but if he's 50-50 or if there's risk of aggravating that injury, it seems counterproductive, but the wise thing would be to sit him out or restrict him to one game. I can't see a way where he's restricted because it's his leading arm. It's his strong arm that's giving him trouble. So that's pretty much a debilitated player if they put him on. So maybe it'd be wiser to sit him out of one game. Lose the game, not going to be easy, but then at least you have a fighting chance in the rest of the series rather than play him half fit where he's not going to be effective anyway. And then even worse, if you aggravate that injury, then he's out for the series. So tough decision for them. Sad that they got this far and then he has to miss minutes. But if Cameron Payne can play anything like he did in that,
oh wow!
it's going to be a fun series.
I was a fan from the time I watched that game.
So let's see if it's beginner's luck, flash in the pan, or if he can keep that up. But that was interesting. I expect the Lakers to win comfortably tomorrow. Game 4, I think, is the real one to watch out for. But who knows? This Suns team, man, every night they surprise us. So let's see.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun game. In other games, Milwaukee traveled to Miami. That's going to be fun. Milwaukee will be looking to just close out the series as soon as possible. Denver and Portland, they're tied at 1-1, so that's going to be a fun game. Denver traveled to Portland now. We'll see how that goes. Your pick for that game?
I'm sticking with Denver throughout the series. I was surprised that Portland routed them like that in game 1. Again, no defense on either side. So the only thing about Portland is they have one guy who once he starts getting hot, it's going to be really difficult. They somehow pulled out the win anyway in game 2. But if he gets even a modicum of support from CJ or Powell and he gets hot, it's over. So they always have that edge. When their 3 shooting gets going, they're hard to stop, Portland. But other than that, there's really no other way they can beat the Nuggets.
I agree. I mean, I think Jokic was silent in this first game. Then he showed how he could perform in the second game. And then I think his streak will carry on as he approaches that MVP award soon.
Yeah, I think he should be less of a playmaker. Right now, his first priority should be Jokic the scorer. And then he can look to facilitate, bring others into the game and all that. But he's got to start aggressively just like he did in game 2. They can't contain him. They simply can't contain him. So him being the scorer is what's best for the team. And as the game progresses, then you can kind of take a step back once you see the court a lot clearer and start running plays. Much like LeBron in LA. LeBron, the playmaker exclusively, just doesn't work against this Phoenix team. It has to be LeBron, the scorer, and supplementing that with his playmaking at times.
Absolutely. So lots to look forward to tomorrow. But that's all the time we have for today. I will catch up tomorrow.
Yes.
See you.